All right, President Trump has been proven right about wiretapping, and guess what? The all-knowing, holier-than-thou, destroy Trump propaganda media has been caught in a massive lie and a major cover-up. Now, the mainstream media has been misleading all of you, the American people, for months and months about this story. So tonight, we will once again do their job and set the record straight so you have the facts. Now, according to a new report, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort was in fact wiretapped by the FBI under FISA court warrants before and after the 2016 election. Now, according to reporting, the FBI was monitoring Manafort over concerns that he was communicating with, quote, Russian operatives. But what's even more disturbing is this. Manafort was under surveillance earlier this year when he was known to be communicating with President Trump. Manafort, earlier tonight, put out a statement and is demanding an investigation into how this information was leaked to the press, and he's also calling for the Obama administration's surveillance of a political opponent to be investigated also. And also tonight, the DOJ did say earlier this month there was no evidence that President Trump was directly targeted for surveillance, but they didn't specify if the president was incidentally caught up in this Manafort wiretap. So for all of you lazy, overpaid, ideological, liberal, mainstream media people out there, you have now been exposed for the frauds you are, yet again. And as we've been saying, the biased press, they're not interested in reporting the truth and fact. They only care about smearing and delegitimizing President Trump, and this is more evidence. And after President Trump tweeted back in March 4th, that he was wiretapped by President Obama or people in his administration, the Destroy Trump media lost it. They were viciously mocking and attacking him. Watch this.
The bottom line is, and always has been, there is no evidence that Donald Trump was wiretapped by Barack Obama. It was and continues to be a lie.
Our conspiracy theory president is at it again. And whenever something like this happens, I wonder, what are the president's sources of information? Where is he getting these ideas?
And that has been denied by President Obama, by the former director of national intelligence, and now we know as well by the FBI director. They are all saying it did not happen. So is the president calling all three of those individuals liars?
I don't think they're taking seriously enough how devastating this is to the American system for one president to say, my predecessor wiretapped.
John?
We have been living in, really through the Trump campaign and unto this hour, this alternative reality.
The way that Donald Trump seems to think about what a president can do feels very Nixonian, that he has a much more inflated view of a president's powers, for him to believe that a president could even, in theory, because the election is on, go in and tap the opponent of his preferred candidate.
Trump's mind is a little bit of a mystery to me still.
The conspiracy theory media lies to you again. Now, this is not surprising, considering the left-wing media, it's like an echo chamber. They all find one topic to attack the president on, and they repeat and repeat and repeat the same talking points. This is beyond pathetic, predictable, frankly dangerous in a lot of ways. Now, while the media was going after President Trump, on this program, well, we actually tried to find out the truth. Remember, this was March 4th when the president tweeted. On March 8th, on this program, Circa News' Sarah Carter, John Solomon, they were reporting that Trump's communications could have, in fact, been caught up in this FISA warrant that was in effect in October. We were way ahead of the curve. Here's what Sarah Carter told us back then.
Now, there was also a separate FISA. It was an overall FISA. And I don't have as much information on that. That FISA, though, was a general FISA that covered the whole Russian hacking investigation. What we don't know is who was connected to that FISA. What was that FISA looking at? And that is very highly classified. Nobody wants to talk about that particular FISA right now. There is a distinction between a FISA and then a wiretapping, but they did tap. I mean, they were looking.
So the truth was staring all these so-called journalists in the face the entire time. They never followed up on that story. Remember, Sarah Carter, John Solomon, they did all the legwork for them. Of course they didn't. It doesn't fit their narrative, their ideological agenda. They'd just rather repeat each other's lies and conspiracy theories than report the facts and explain what's really going on, something you deserve. And after breaking this story, well, some of the anchors over at the fake news network CNN, even now, they finally are having to start to admit that President Trump was right the entire time. after March 4th this happened. Take a look.
Hold on a second, Maggie, because I do think it sounds like the president was right. If Paul Manafort has a residence in Trump Tower and Paul Manafort was being surveilled and wiretapped, Trump Tower was wiretapped.
No, it was not. I'm sorry. I mean,
how do you know?
Well, I don't know, but I know that what we know so far does not indicate that Trump Tower, my lines, as he put it, were, unless you were saying that he owns every single thing in Trump Tower.
Yeah, that is what he's saying.
The president came out about this, right? We all remember those tweets on March 4th. Let me just read them again for anyone who's forgotten. Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my, quote, wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. He continued, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate. Bad, open parentheses, or sick guy. He was derided for this. But, Mark, is he somehow vindicated tonight?
So when will other members of the establishment destroy Trump media? When are they going to come forward and admit they had it wrong? Now, there's a very important fact in this story that cannot be ignored, and that is Obama's former director of national intelligence, James Clapper. He denied on Meet the Press back in March that there was ever any wiretappings of President Trump or his campaign. And he also said there was no evidence of a FISA court warrant. Listen to what he says. Watch this.
For the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Of anything at Trump Tower?
No.
Wrong and shocking. Now, Clapper needs to be hauled in front of Congress, and he needs to be ordered to testify under oath about everything that he knows and how he went on television and said something that's not true. Because guess what? He doesn't appear to be telling the truth yet again in the clip we just showed you. It's inexcusable. I hope tonight the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, is watching. The American people deserve to know the truth. The mainstream establishment media is no longer in the truth-telling business. All right, also tonight, President Trump, he stepped on the world stage earlier today at the UN and wasted very little time in confronting the many dangers America and the world is now facing, evil in our time. President Trump, he took direct aim at North Korea for its continued aggression, and he issued a direct warning to dictator Kim Jong-un and his rogue regime. Take a look at this.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. It is time for North Korea to realize that the denuclearization is its only acceptable future.
And what a difference a president makes. Now, President Trump didn't stop with North Korea. He also focused on radical Islamic mullahs in Tehran and the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal. Look at this.
We cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me.
Now, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and we've not heard the last of it. Now, this is what leading on the world stage actually looks like. President Trump refused to appease and capitulate to countries like Iran and the hate America crowd in North Korea, countries that want to see Israel wiped off the map. In fact, President Trump is receiving very high praise for his very bold and direct address. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said it was the most bold, courageous speech he's ever heard at the United Nations. Now, President Trump also outlined his plan to defeat radical Islamic terrorism and called on other countries to ramp up their efforts in that fight. Modern-day evil. And I've got to say, it's beyond refreshing and encouraging to have a president who is not afraid to call out radical Islamic terrorism by name. Remember, only a couple of years ago, President Obama did the exact opposite at the UN and actually said that Islam is the religion of peace. Well, for some, yes, but for many, no. And finally, during the major speech, President Trump defended American sovereignty by declaring he, as president, will always put America first. Now, later in the program, we will have Ambassador John Bolton